Hello and welcome back to B-Roll Redux. And this is our second episode. It's going to be a good one today. How are you, David?
Hey, good morning. How are you, Dave?
I am doing good. I'm doing good. So, the film that we're going to be talking about today is
Dum, dum,
it's
dum.
it's, it's one of the funny ones.
Right?
You know, it's going to be 1999's Galaxy Quest.
Got it. Yeah, great movie. Great
Great
movie.
movie. So,
Yeah.
real quick, tell me how you feel about this movie. When was the first time you saw it, and how you feel about it today?
The first time I saw it, I was probably saw it when I was traveling. I had free time when I was on the road, and just went and saw it. And I didn't really realize it was a fandom movie until after the fact. I just saw a movie. I like Tim Allen and Tony Shalhoub. It was just it's a great movie. Then I started to realize that hey, this is a play on Star Trek. I wasn't a big Star Trek. I mean, I watched my science fiction movies were more of Lost in Space we talked about in Star Wars. I really wasn't a big Trekkie, but I appreciate. I used to watch it late night when there's nothing else on TV. But it was a good movie. I mean, the good series. But Galaxy Quest, it just really resonated with me for a number of reasons. The the loneliness these actors have, and they need the audience participation. These comic cons they go to kind of re-energize themselves because it's kind of one dimensional being an actor, and they some of these they just need this stuff to make them feel whole, and you kind of see that with Tim Allen's character. We're going to talk more about it later, but they need this stuff to keep them going.
And you mentioned that, rejuvenating them, revitalizing them at these cons. And like the first Star Trek con, yeah, I think it was just a Star Trek con. It was like in 1972 or 77. Um, and producers were there and they saw how many people actually showed up
Right,
for, at this time, it was just a TV series, that
right,
ended like 67. It
right,
was over for years, and a lot of people showed up at this first con, and producers were saying, we need to make a Star Trek movie.
right,
Because
right,
like we talked about in the first episode, they see that ingrown, audience. It's like how many
right,
people, everyone that's here, the thousands of people here that paid to come here just to see actors on a show that has been off the air for a while.
right,
There's
right,
interest there.
right. Yeah, there's
And
definitely
that's how they
interest.
started working on the first Star Trek movies,
Right,
which led to six, six with the
right,
original cast. And then at this time, in 99, when this movie came out, you had Next Generation going,
right,
and that brought Star Trek even more into the mainstream, on CBS, on television. It went on for 6, 8 years, right? Like you, I wasn't like the biggest Star Trek fan. I was more of Star Wars, but I did ingest everything Star Trek.
right, right,
We watched, on TV, The Next Generation, something good, family oriented to watch.
right.
Um, I'm pretty sure we probably went to see Galaxy Quest in the theater. There's not much to do during Christmas. Not much, many things are open. So yeah, we probably went to the theaters at one point or another.
Right,
Um, it was marketed as a PG movie to go against Stuart Little,
right,
family oriented Christmas movie.
right,
Um, Originally, it was going to be a lot darker,
right, right, right,
which, as older that I am now, it would probably still worked. This is 99. This is the time South Park has been around for a couple of years now.
hmm right,
Um, a lot of the other companies, were going through like this attitude era. If you watch wrestling, it drastically changed, their tone to fit how these Gen Xers were ingesting the new
right,
internet that was coming out. And
right,
internet's been around for maybe 4 years.
right, right. Kind
So
of general, yeah, yeah,
yeah, it was a different tone. So yeah, I mean, I could see how it would have probably worked with a more darker humor, raunchier humor, crude humor.
right,
But they even shot it that way. There's a lot of parts in there where it's edited. You can see where it's like, yeah, it's missing something here that
Right.
could
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
have pushed the bucket up to that PG
Right. Yeah.
13
We talked
or
about
R.
pre-production, and but one thing I was reading in the notes that I think Tony Shalhoub was a quote. He didn't think it was dark the way it was, but again, so much takes place in the editing. He just thought it was a movie. He didn't see it as a dark movie. But like I said, with the editing and some of the stuff that the actors aren't privy to, sometimes the camera keeps rolling and catches stuff, or creative editing. Yeah, I don't like we were talking. Some of the jokes maybe didn't fall the way they wanted to because they didn't have the rest of the story, so to speak, to back it up. Yeah, like they did talk about with Shalhoub's character and the drug use, and we were talking about then. I think looking back in my mind, thinking, yeah, why does this guy always look like he's stoned? But there's no reference to drug use, and like that's why it happened in editing.
And
Yeah,
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure it happened in editing. There was parts where, I mean, it would have to have been early on, maybe not even in the editing on some cases. Some cases, like we were talking about Tim Allen looking for a shoe.
right.
Got his butt in the
Yeah,
air and
but
he's got
yeah, right, right,
the
right,
Thermians just, standing there looking, oblivious. It's like, yeah, they're, in a PG-13, you would have shown his butt, right?
right, right, right,
So by the time, the script gets into actual production, it's probably changed to more of that PG, right?
right,
And even in that PG-13 that they got it down, it's like, well, at that point, all that drug use is probably gone, right? It's
right,
like, well, we don't need him. If at that time, if you show drug use on the screen, you're pretty much going to get an R,
right,
you know. So by the time Tony Shalhoub got the script, it's like, okay, he probably knew there was going to be no drug use, but he still wanted that as his character.
right.
That's what
Well,
he was
yeah,
told, and that's how he built that character. Is like, well, I'm just going to go with that.
right, right, right,
And then, you know, the to help that along and help him along, it's like he's always eating. He's always got the
right,
munchies. He's carrying
right,
around a brown paper bag that he pulls out chips from.
right, 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 right,
So it's like, that tick, he got notes at the very beginning. He created his character, and it's like,
right,
well, if that's my character, how am I going to show that through his actions? And what's he going to do during the scenes where he doesn't have dialogue? Well, he's
right,
messing with that bag. He's eating,
right, right,
gives that character action and makes him real, right?
right. One of my one and only close-up scenes when I wanted to act is I had to come out of the bathroom and say no with my eyes to my on-screen wife. And if, I say, well, how the hell do I do that? So in some of the takes, you see me, my eyes are like going back and forth. Like it's hard to have that expression, that, say no with your eyes. And it was a challenging scene. I don't know if you've ever, I don't know if I've shared that movie with you, where I play a congressman that has a son. It's horrible, but it's funny. I'll have to share that with you. Maybe we can have that on movie night. Oh, here we can watch it together. Yeah, it's hard, but you need to have you mentioned years ago when we were talking, birth the character from birth, adolescence, and middle age. Have something that defines that character, and that's obviously what he did. He said, "This is how I'm going to play this character," and it went over some people's heads, but if you know the backstory, well, that's why he was like that, and that's just how he saw the character was. And the director fortunately was allowed him to do, keep it that way. Yeah.
Right, and it's also a lot of writing, right? When you're making a family film, it's important. I mean, I think it was like Walt Disney who said this. It's like he doesn't make films for kids. I mean,
Right.
he makes kids films,
Right.
but you got to write it and create the movie for the parents
Right. Right.
because they're the ones with the money. they're
Right.
they're the ones that are actually going to give you the money to bring their family to them. So
Right.
if like your script and your movie doesn't appeal to the parents and the older people, then your film's probably not going to do all that great.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing with Galaxy Quest. It's like, well, yeah, not a lot of people are going to realize that Tony Shalhoub is a stoner. The character is
Right.
a stoner. But if you're an adult, you realize the signs,
Right. Right. Right.
right? You understand the munchies. You understand, why he's giggling every now and then, or he's like so nonchalant where everyone else is is freaking
freaking out.
out, and
Right. He just like,
dealing with the situation. He's all going with the flow,
yeah,
right?
he's the only one that
He's
gets the
super
girl too.
chill.
Right. He gets the girl too.
Yeah, he gets the girl. Oh, that ain't right, right? Sam Rockwell, another great character in there.
Oh, it's yeah.
Um,
It was yeah.
but this movie is technically a parody. Like you said, it's not technically a Star Trek film, even though at a Star Trek con, I think in 2013, fans there were told to rate, the top, Star Trek films. And at that time, there was only maybe, 12 or 13 at that time. It was ranked number seven.
Right. Well, even J.J. Abrams says, "What's your favorite Star Trek movie?" And he says, "Galaxy Quest."
Yeah,
You know that?
I mean, it's got so much heart. The thing is, it's a parody, and there's been a lot of parodies through times, and they've grown. Our generations, it started kind of like with Blazing Saddles,
Right.
then Airplane, and then Leslie Nielsen's, Naked Gun series to Hot
Right.
Shots,
So First Shot Part Two and
Hot
what's the
Shots
other one?
Part Two.
Top Secret. You ever see Top Secret? My parents took me to see that movie, and I was just a kid. I didn't get any of the humor they did, but now I watch like, oh, that movie's rough.
So, all those parodies, basically follow the same story of the original,
Right.
of the original film, and they made fun of it. What
Right.
this movie sets apart is it doesn't really follow a particular story of Star Trek. It is its own story.
Right.
It's a
Right.
story about these actors and, their accountability and, their disdain for what they used to do and also not being as relevant anymore,
Right.
realizing they are just as relevant and they are, friends and family,
Right.
and their work affected people, so much,
Right. I like the character arc of, Tim Allen's character, where he's definitely tired of what he's doing, and he's making his coworkers wait. But then he comes, I think he comes full circle, don't you think? I mean, where he realizes, hey, he needs these people in his lives as much as they need him. I think he needs them more because he's just burnt out, in this character, and he fed off the crowd, but he really needed the people. I think it was a nice turn of tides for the
it really
character.
works as like the hero story arc,
Right,
right? About, redemption and the journey that is taken. And a lot of them fill in that quota, but more, Tim Allen does. He has alienated himself at the beginning. You see him as a lonely person. You see him in public, like you said, he's putting on that face. He
right,
enjoys that attention because when he goes home in his big house,
right. He's all by himself.
it's all
Yeah,
about himself. He's watching his old shows, the Live
right,
Glory days. He's drinking until he falls asleep. He's
right,
alienated everyone, friends, maybe family. We don't know he's got family, right?
right. Yeah, they never
Um,
mentioned that. Yeah, I guess he's just, yeah, that's true. They never mentioned that.
yeah. So this is something you just gotta assume. It's like, well, he alienated everyone. Even if he had relationships, they didn't last
Yeah,
long
right.
because
They
he
didn't
was
last
he was
long.
self-involved, probably,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Um, the thing is, being a parody, it, it's so grounded, right? Even though it is a parody, it's grounded in its story. All the characters are grounded and very natural, right?
right,
Everyone in parodies, slapstick things happen, characters are doing slapstick things, but all these characters are acting like a real person would be acting
right.
at this time
In that
in
situation,
that
right?
situation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a really good movie. I mean, I just giggled thinking about Sigourney Weaver's character. She's reading back like, is this all I do? Just reading back the computer. And yeah, it's a fun movie. I mean, I still highly recommend it. You need to get the kids to watch it. I'll sit the kids
And
down and watch it.
at this time, this is before geek culture became mainstream.
Right,
Back then, in the late 90s, when you're a geek and you're a nerd, you're one of the outcasts. You know,
Right,
you're
right,
shunned, you know.
right,
But this movie, doesn't make fun of, the geeks and nerds who love the
right,
Star Trek. They have fun with them,
right, right,
right? And that's what is like, the heart of the movie, where it's like, hey, it's like we want to go on a journey that you all would love.
right.
Even if you're not a Star Trek fan, it's like this is probably the movie for you to actually check out Star Trek.
And then that, yeah, funny, man, because that's probably one of the reasons that it is, you know, it is a really good movie if you like sci-fi or anything, because it's just a good movie. I mean, the premise of it, it's the base, the bones of it, it's just a good movie.
Yeah, it has its own sci-fi story, right?
Right,
It's not a Star Trek story.
right,
They do Star Trekky things, away
right,
team, they go to a
right,
planet, they do some science, and
right,
they have a space battle, so it does Star Trekky things, but also does just generic sci-fi.
right. And the heart, you feel for with the Therminians, yeah, you
Yeah,
feel for them, and they're just looking for help. Yeah, and well, they're historical documents. They call this TV show, right?
yeah.
Historic. What else? What else have you watched?
Gilligan's
Historical,
Island, those poor people.
right? You know what? I didn't realize that Rainn Wilson that was his debut
Yeah,
feature film. Rainn Wilson. You don't see much of him outside
the very
yeah,
beginning in the
very
limo and the
beginning,
freaking
but
mug.
I
Yeah.
think that looks like Rainn Wilson. Like, and I read in Wikipedia.
So this movie, when it came out, the first weekend, Christmas, went up against Stuart Little. It only made 7 million,
Right.
so not that great. But after the new year, after Y2K, didn't happen. The
Well, that
next
was
four
a
weeks,
crazy time. In the
yeah,
first,
everyone's freaking out during that. Next 4 weeks, it maintained it's like box office receipts,
right,
and ended up, with a $45 million budget, it
right,
made
like I said,
90.7
yeah,
million.
worldwide. That's not too bad. That's not
No,
too
I
bad.
mean they doubled the budget money. And the
Right,
thing is unlike nowadays movies, they did not really have a marketing plan. And the marketing people at that time, I believe it was DreamWorks, had to apologize to the filmmakers
right.
because they
Yeah,
knew that they just
right.
let something go. It's like we
They
did
just
not do enough to promote this movie. It could have
right,
been big.
right. Yeah,
So I mean, there's a lot of great scenes, to talk about here, and how we say, it was grounded in reality and these characters felt so real is because they actually took a lot of real experiences.
right,
With Tim Allen's character, Naismith, they took a lot of inspiration from William Shatner, of course.
right,
That the bathroom scene at the Comic Con, you know, was basically from William Shatner's books. He had
right,
this
right. From his
experience.
book, right, right,
He was in a toilet stall and he heard people talking about him. They made fun of him. They said all the other cast members were talking crap about him, and they thought he was a joke and thought he was you know, not a great person. And it just shows. It's like, man, that when you have something like that that feels real because it was real,
right, right,
right? And how Alexander's, Alex, Rickman's character, Helen Rickman's
right,
character, he was talking about how, Tim Allen's character, stole his lines and cut him out of a scene altogether. It's like, well, that's something that happened, on the original Star Trek.
right, right,
William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, were the two big stars.
right,
William Shatner wanted to be a little bit bigger star at the time.
right,
So it's like
right,
he
right,
was working his way to take lines and, cutting out, Leonard Nimoy's spot, every now and then,
right.
it
Well,
all
yeah,
that drama is just so real, and so
right,
grounded.
yeah, yeah. But it makes for a good story because you want to have when art imitates life, uh, because you want to have something that people can relate to, so they do want to watch. Hey, this has happened to me. Just like with Manny, his backstory, it's going to resonate with somebody. Anything you want to create that audience, to create that draw, and to get people to talk about your product. Have something that people can relate to, other than yeah, you want to get away, but you want to have something that resonates with that with your audience. Yeah.
Yeah, and just those little things that they take, from that. Even with Sigourney Weaver's character and talking about how her character had a interview with TV Guide, and it was just like 9 pages of them talking about how her bosom fits in
Right,
her
right, right, right,
in
right.
her suit.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, that happened to Jerry Ryan.
right,
That is something that literally happened.
right,
That was
right, right,
real. It's like, well, yeah, other actresses have dealt with that.
right,
People
right,
understand that. People will look at that. It's like, okay, I believe them as actors. Well, they're actors to begin with, so it should be
right,
easy.
right,
The stories that they go through, in this parody, in this comedy, are life. And like you said, the simulation of life, and life life can be funny, you
right.
know.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite scenes?
You put me on the spot now. I have to engage my brain. Well, let's just say the one scene that I don't like is when he's in the limousine with the young kids and he's kind of puts them off. That's. I mean, I know it's life, but it's just like you don't want to see an adult being mean to kids. These definitely are fans. It's a good scene, but it's life. But that scene was like, oh, it was tough to watch because you don't want to hurt a kid's feelings.
And
Someone,
that's what it was meant to. And I think
right?
the director and the writer and the actors did exactly what they're supposed to. That was the emotion that they were trying to draw from you.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was the way society was viewing nerds and geeks.
right.
They
Yeah,
were, not lesser than human, but sometimes
right,
like, yeah, they're not worth your time.
right, right, right,
It's like even at the Comic Con, after he got, talked to in the bathroom, or he heard that, and he goes in and he was like short with the fans saying it's
right,
not
right, right,
real, it's like all
right.
fake. And it's like, well,
Yeah,
it's like, yeah,
and
that was happening, right?
it's always that small minority of people that go to these things that are like that. They're far outweighed by the people that are there to, they have a good time and really enjoy the experience. So,
But
it's
those
kind of a
people
thing
are the
of
one
like,
are the backbone. Those
right,
those people are the reason why an IP will last
right,
for decades and decades and
right, right, right. With
decades.
the
It's been
toys, right,
since
right,
60
right, right,
something. How long is that?
right,
We're talking
right.
about 60 years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you need people that are dedicated and invested.
Investment,
Like they
yeah,
know it's not real, but they want more.
right,
So that's why they're asking these details. It's like, well, if
right,
that detail is means this, then this means this, and
right,
then they can connect other things with, other episodes and other points of this, and then really dive deep. I mean, look
right,
how the era when then Lost, the TV series came out, when it
right,
was that all about the internet, the talk about it.
right,
Like watch the
right,
episode, and then we got to go online
and talk about it. Right,
and get into the details. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that
right,
mean?
right,
And that became mainstream.
right,
That's where it got birthed. It got birthed by, these, the geek and nerd culture that get so involved into these IPs like Star Wars and Star Trek
right,
that they want more details. They want to fill in the blanks,
right.
right?
Yeah, they go to great lengths. I mean, they start websites and do the. I like the what do they call them? The movies where they recreate the whole scene by scene. Uh, they recut it. Well, they act it out, and I guess fan films. What they call them, fan films, right?
Oh
Where
yeah,
they
they used to be a lot of fan films. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, they do get heavily invested. Another I'm trying to think I always like the scene on the when they're in the cock, the what are they the flight deck, just when they're in their element, the young guy,
Laredo.
yeah, Laredo when he's trying to figure. I like when he's pulling out, and then he hits the wall, this long screech, and you see the
And it's
little
like, come on,
black mark
go
on the
this way a little
side.
bit, go this way.
That was just
Well,
hilarious.
the thing is,
He's
because I was really watching that scene because, like I said, it was hilarious because
right,
you've seen that scene before in Star Trek films.
Right.
right? I mean, it was even Kubrick would have like long, exaggerated docking scenes,
Right. Right.
21 Space Odyssey, right? But if you look at the way the ship is shaped, him
Right.
scratching up that front, it's like, man, that wing
Yeah, because the
would
wings
have
are
been
way out here.
inside the station. But it's like, man, you weren't paying attention to that really when you're watching it because it's
No,
funny.
right.
The reactions of the crew
Right.
were real.
Right.
They're not, they weren't saying anything. They were just like
No,
being like, it's like
yeah.
they didn't have to say a word. But
Right.
then you weren't going. It's like, hold on, that wouldn't happen. The wing would have
Right.
been off. It's
Right.
like you
Right.
weren't thinking
Right.
about
Right.
that because it was just a really funny
Yeah, it's a really funny scene. Yeah.
situation, that was parodying, the original content.
So I mean, did it happen in Star Wars? I mean, there was a scene
In
like
Star
that.
Trek, yeah, in Star
Oh,
Trek,
Star Trek. Yeah.
they would always, because their ship got destroyed basically at the end of every movie.
Right.
So they would have to have a new Enterprise be built. And, sometimes it's like, well, Kirk's not even the captain. He's got to go sneak on the Enterprise and they got to steal it. And,
Oh,
when you steal a ship, it's usually in the docking bay. So there was
right.
always, especially in the
That's
first
funny.
movie,
Right.
because it's kind of introducing it to people who haven't even seen Star Trek before.
Okay. Yeah.
So they have to show that, the glorious ship being revealed and
Right.
the
Right.
massiveness. So there was always three or four different Enterprise
Docu
coming
I'm doc
out of the
right.
docking bay.
I'm gonna go back and find it. Oh, it's so funny. It's like
Yeah,
going back to the
and
car in our garage. Sean's
probably.
driving now. And so he's back in Maria's car in the garage, and there's a little scuff on the mirror where it hits we have a shelf on the right side. I told Maria, "Hey, it wasn't me, it's your son." And it buffs right out, but say, "Hey, it wasn't me. Your 15-year-old driving your car." So that's one of my favorite. What about yours? What do you have a favorite scene?
Um,
Probably many.
I mean, I don't think you can't consider it a scene, but I think everything that happens when they go onto like the mining plant to find like the beryllium sphere,
Right, right. That's a good one.
is just hilarious.
Right,
The small little details that are put from, opening the door from the shuttle, before you tested the air, and
right,
Sam
right. That's
Rockwell's
it. Right,
character is like, do you even know it's air?
right,
He sucks in a deep breath and is holding it, for a while, or, Alan Rickman's character holding the tricorder device upside down,
right,
because that's what Spock did. Spock, at the very beginning in Star Trek, he was holding a tricorder one way, and then eventually it became the other way.
right, right.
It's
Oh, yeah,
something
yeah.
new. He didn't know how to use this prop,
Right, right, right. No, the prop guy didn't show him, right?
Yeah.
Uh, this used to be a micro. This used to be a remote control for the TV in the group kitchen. Now it's a prop. That's
Yeah, so
another.
it's like, man, just all those little details, guy freaking out that, it's like he's one of those red shirts, or it's like, man, I don't even have a last name. Do you
Right,
guys know my name?
right. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Yeah,
The plan that they start talking about, it's like, well, we'll use episode 81 plan. It's like, episode 81? I die in episode 81. It's like, just all these little tiny details that Tim Allen's tactical role, and losing the shirt, like Kirk always did.
right, right, right.
Sam Rockwell asking the other cast members if they ever watched the show, because if they ever watched the show, they know it's like, do not approach these aliens. They might look
Right,
cute, but they're gonna turn really bad
right,
really
right.
quickly.
Yeah, that's right. Do you ever watch? Yeah, a lot of actors don't do that. They don't watch. Like Raphael, he didn't want to see any scenes until it's done. I don't. I think he's seen maybe the therapist scene, but yeah, some actors they don't want to see. But it's funny. Have you seen what happens in episode?
Have you ever
Uh,
watched the show? Or like, the transporter. It's
right,
like, oh, let's test it out. None of this stuff has ever been tested on that ship. These
right,
Thurmans used TV shows that they thought were historical documents
right.
and
Build this
made
stuff.
this ship from that information. So it's
Right,
like, who knows if this transporter works,
right,
right?
right. And I'm just,
Well, let's take a little break right here, and then we'll
okay.
be right back, and we'll continue talking about our favorite scenes. All right, we are back, and let's talk about the scene that's basically like the heart of the film. It's when Tim Allen's character, Naismith, has to tell Mathesar that they are actors, that their
Right,
historical documents are lies, basically.
right,
These aliens, the Thermans, they they believe that these TV shows are historical documents, that they're real. Gilligan's Island was real. You know,
right,
um, they have no knowledge of acting. And the great line from the bad guy's line is like, he doesn't understand. Tell him like he's a child.
right. Don't like a
And
child.
how you tell him that someone's acting is like, yeah, we lied.
Right, we
And the
like
only
that.
the only line that exists in their reality, in their society, is from the bad alien race. It's like
Right,
there is no lying in the Thermans. The Thermans are honest. They're
right,
they're they're very innocent. Let's put it that
right.
way.
Yeah, very, yeah,
They're
right,
unblemished by a lot. Let's put it that way.
right,
And so when he finally tells them, this is what's the true fact, that where Tim Allen showed that it's like, man, he's more than a comedian. And there's a story in this scene where it's like Tim Allen delivered his lines, and afterwards he had to go to his trailer. He said he didn't
right,
like the emotions he was feeling.
right. Bring up the right. I read that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
Alan Rickman, was one that wrote this in this book. And he's like, when he saw that happening, it's like, oh, Tim Allen must have just experienced acting.
Right.
And this was
It can,
Spielberg was there that day. He impressed Spielberg. And Spielberg didn't want Tim Allen. He wanted a dramatic actor
right,
and play comedic. He was looking at Bruce Willis and other dramatic actors. And tell you the truth, especially nowadays where we learn where it's like, man, starting with a comedian, that they know drama.
right.
It's just they might not enjoy
Well,
doing
yeah,
it.
right. Yeah, it's just yeah. It's. I mean, you
You
have
look at Robin Williams. Even I think even Robin Williams was mentioned by the writer and the director, but Spielberg didn't want Robin Williams,
right.
right? So it's like, man, but you look at what he did in dramatic movies like Good Will
Oh,
Hunting
right,
and other
right,
things.
right,
Look at
right, right,
Steve Carell. He was a comedian, comic, and then all of a sudden, Foxcatcher, and
right.
he's doing a lot of Adam Sandler, comedian.
Yeah, the first.
Then
Yeah, right. Then the.
Punch Drunk Love,
Yeah,
came
I was
out.
watching this like, what the heck is this? I was expecting a comedy
Yeah.
with the
So
with
it's
the.
like, man, yeah, all that emotion that he was feeling, he put it in that scene, and it felt. That was the emotional heart of the film. It's like he
Right,
was so sorry for what he did, because
right,
when his character was excited that it was real. Yeah, at first, he was kind of like, freaked out, but then it was like, man, my life, it's real. It's real.
right,
I can live my life that I want,
right.
and
Yeah, the
I have
portrait. Right,
this popularity, and they're all counting on me, and they think I'm a hero, But here is when he fully starts to take that accountability. It's like, what
right,
have I done? I need to do better, right?
right,
This was his growth. This was his turning point of him realizing, because he sees how he's affected his friends. Like, man, I got my friends messed up with this. I got all
right,
these people that thought I was a hero, and they're gonna die because of me.
right.
Right? So
Yeah,
this was his human moment where he grows into the captain character.
right. Yeah, that's a good scene. Yeah, and the scene where they're in the where the where they're dying, they're taking Sarah puts them in the where they're dying with lack of oxygen, and
Mhm.
the clock is ticking to rescue them. Yeah,
Oh yeah, at that point, everyone was basically slowly becoming the better versions of their character,
right.
right?
They're
Um,
challenged and they're whatever.
Sigourney
Yeah,
Weaver's character became headstrong, making decisions. She wasn't relying on a computer and just regurgitating what
right,
the computer
right,
said. You know, she was standing up on her own, right? Laredo, the driver, learned how to drive,
right,
and he didn't have the biggest art.
right.
Yeah, the big three were Tim Allen's character, Sigourney Weaver's character,
Yeah,
and Alan Rickman's
yeah,
character. Alan Rickman's character, he hated everything, about
right,
his
right.
character.
Yeah,
He was a
definitely just going through the
Shakespearean
motions.
Arthur, right?
Right, right,
That's how he affect people. He affect people emotionally in theater,
right.
and then over the course, seeing the the death of the Thurman that, you know, based his life on
On
Alan
him,
Rickman's characters, he
right.
realizes like, man, my character in this cheesy Star Trek series that he thought affected people more than he ever could on
It was
stage.
good imagine, right, right, right,
Right. And that's why he changed. It's like, man, he realizes like, man, it doesn't matter, what your art is, as long as you can make people feel and connect with people, it's important,
right.
you
Yeah,
know.
you mentioned that. Today I was at the doctor before our show, and I was getting my blood work done, and I was talking to the phlebotomist, find out that she's an artist, and we go talking about it. Say, yeah, you never know how that piece of art is going to affect somebody. You walk through the museum, look at all this, like, but then you see something that really resonates with you, and then you find out more about the artist and why he did that, because you never know. Like, yeah, you never know how it's going to affect somebody. But you have to do it because it's a drive that you have that you want to go out there and not necessarily, well, you want to help people, but you want to do something. But it becomes, if you don't have with the Comic Cons and stuff, you have the adulation of the masses. But it's maybe you want to have that one person that really resonates with you and it kind of completes you. You know, you come full circle. That's why I do it because of this one person. I think that's that once it because I watch that scene thinking about it, you kind of get glassy eyed because it's something and thinking this is a comedy. So why am I sitting here with potentially tears running down my face? But because it draws they're doing their job.
And that's what
Cinema.
makes it a very complete movie. You mentioned that where it's like, yeah, it's supposed to be a comedy. Why am I here tearing up? It's like, well, sometimes comedy and tragedy are kind of going hand to hand,
Right, right. The two masks.
This is a grounded story. These are real people. And when you're dealing with a situation that's like this, I mean, the Thermians were getting exterminated. They were
Right,
being genocide,
right,
and if you really dive deep into it, it's like, yeah, this is a really kind of a dark movie. It could have been really dark
right.
because
Really, really, right, right, right. Yeah,
there is a lot of death that you just don't see, but you
right.
know that it happened. Everyone did such a great job. The
Yeah,
reason why this movie worked so well was because of the actors. The actors played so grounded. They played exactly how a real person
right.
react in the
Would act
situation.
right in that situation that on both sides, on Earth and in space, they they brought it. They did what they needed to do. They were
And they all
challenged
had like I said, they all had the hero story.
by
You
the
know,
heroes.
you're freaked out. You want to go home, but then you realize that these people,
They need
the
help.
Thurmans, they don't have a home anymore.
Right,
And now they're relying on you, you
right,
guys, to do
right.
something. It's that hero moment of stepping up and doing
That's
something.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So these actors who had no idea what they were doing rose to the occasion, right? And that's
Right,
what the hero story is basically about.
right, right,
And that's
right.
why it worked so well. Just because
Yeah,
they were so grounded, they were so human, we understand their fear and terror. But going through the hero story, that's what it's about. Even though through fear and terror, you stand up
right.
and you stand up for the people
You
who are
need
the weak, right? The
right, right.
Thurmans, standing
Yeah,
up for the little guy.
right, right. Yeah, and yeah, I'm glad we talked about it and there's a lot of good movies out there that really you don't hear about because they're not the big blockbusters or a lot of great movies. We've talked about it, talk more about these movies that they're kind of unsung heroes, so to speak. But it's a
So
good movie.
nowadays, if you were going to make this film, you think it would get the PG rating? You would think they would probably keep it more darker, huh?
Well, I don't like what we were talking before with couldn't remake Rocky now because of the filmmaking, the style of filmmaking, and the grittiness, and the actor wanting to be the lead, the writer wanting to be the lead character. I think they're letting the dollar dictate what they're going to make. And like I said before, it's not all it can't always be about the money. But it's expensive to make a movie. I don't think they would risk it. Maybe a TV show. I know there's talks about it, and
I mean, they were actually talking about uh at one time they were talking about a movie.
right,
After Alan Rickman passed away,
Right.
There were still talks, I think in 2021,
Right.
to make a TV series,
Right.
which would be like a sequel that would follow like a new crew, and they would have a
Right.
gap between like the old crew.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver were bored in it.
Right. I don't know if they
So
it would.
I don't think it would
Yeah, I
happen.
don't think it would work. No, it'd be. I mean, one thing. Sometimes things need to do be on the big screen, and get some creativity out there. There's a lot of stuff that that's sitting on the shelves that could be made, but again, they don't have the built-in audience, and that's the business side of the creative business. They need to have that audience, and it costs a lot of money now more than ever to get those following. So they're saying, well, let's just go reboot this.
Like if they remake it nowadays and it's a sequel, it's like, man, you already lost the charm of the movie.
Oh yeah,
It's no longer that grounded story, that was a parody. Now it's gonna be like, okay, they're gonna bring in people and like are they gonna make it the same premise where these Thurmans are gonna grab the new crew and bring them up and just throw them in the
right,
in the ship? If it's a series, it's gonna last 8 hours. Man, 8 hours is like, well, you have Thurmans going around doing Star Trek missions. Well, that's just Star
right.
Trek. That's just a Star Trek episode, right? So it's like,
Yeah, I just leave well enough alone. Just leave it
yeah,
alone.
that magic of seeing it for the first time, seeing these characters react to it for the first time.
Right,
It is what made it so great. If they bring back Tim Allen's character and Sigourney Weaver's character, it's like, well, man, they already went through the hero's journey. Where do
right,
they have to go from now?
right. Down.
Yeah, they have to go down, or they have to like, you know, do something to put them in a down state to
Right,
get picked up again.
right,
But to pick them back up again, if you bring them back to the spaceship, well, they're not going to act the same way.
right.
Are they just going to act like their characters and the heroes
Right.
that they were on there?
We've already done this thing, right? Yeah, very true, right?
Yeah,
Just leave it alone.
it was one thing, this movie is one of those, that one magic and go. It's like you hit
Right,
something, you have magic in a bottle.
right,
But the reason why it was so good was just because it was so unique. It was so
right.
different and it was
Yeah,
so grounded.
leave it alone.
Yeah, leave it alone. Yeah, they just don't make movies like they used to.
No.
In the 90s, I give the 90s a lot of grift a lot of times of saying that, the writers didn't really care, right? They just,
Right,
especially in their action movies, it's like, well, it's like you start picking apart, it's like, well, that wouldn't happen. That couldn't happen, or that would have happened. And
right,
you start realizing it's like, well, they were just writing for writing, and
right,
that's just escalating nowadays. But when the movie like, Galaxy Quest comes along and they put in all those little details,
right,
and they keep all the treasures, and then they keep, this line matches this line,
right,
Sam Rockwell's character is consistent all the way through, and
right,
just one lines that come earlier on mean something later,
right,
right?
right. The foreshadowing. Yeah. And Tony Shalhoub being high without being high.
Or Justin Long's character, and I think this was Justin Long's first role as well. He
Okay.
played the nerd that had the communicator,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. The kid
and
that he was rude to
you
in high
got to take out the trash. The mom tells him to take
school.
out trash. Like, I need 10 minutes. I'll do it.
Right, right. At least he's at the end there. At least he's outside.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
least he's outside. He's like he tells him the truth. And that was one of like a cliche in the 90s where it's like, man, the truth is so ridiculous.
Right,
But you tell them, you keep on telling them. It's so ridiculous. Tell them the story, but that was the important part. The
right,
nerd or the geek got off the computer
right,
and went outside, and that's
right.
all they wanted for their
For the kid.
kids. Like as long as he's outside, man, that's it. Any final thoughts on Galaxy Quest?
I recommend this. It's a thumbs up. Which is yeah. What I like it. It's a good. I'm about to rewatch it with the kid. I'll probably watch it this weekend with the kids. Uh, it's on Pluto. I found it on Pluto.
I think it's on YouTube as well with ads.
Yeah.
Of course, if you have a subscription to Paramount Plus, it
Right.
uh it got cataloged in with the rest of the Star Trek.
Yeah.
And yeah, I recommend it. If you're looking for something that's funny, it still resonates today.
Right.
Don't skip on Galaxy Quest. If you've never seen
No.
it before, take a watch. If you
Right.
have seen it before, watch it again. recommend it to the other people who haven't seen it. Have a movie night, pop it in. It's not just, nowadays we don't like that PG rating. We're more edgier nowadays. It's
Right,
the streaming, everything's got MA on it, right? So it's like
right, right,
if
right.
you're looking for something that's clean, funny, or you're
A
just
good
looking for
story.
something funny,
Yeah,
go with this.
yeah. All right, my friend. Good talk. So we
And you can catch us on
oh,
where can we find us?
Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, YouTube, our YouTube channel. It's under Let's Talk 2000. Is that let's yes,
I think
Let's
it's just
Talk.
livestock, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, give us a like, a share, all the we need to do TikTok. We need to do a TikTok.
That sounds like something we need to do. All right.
60-year-old man
We
is
heard
addicted to
everywhere we
TikTok.
can go. Don't forget to like and subscribe,
Right,
follow us. We're trying to hit every episode on Fridays, at 6 p.m. They should be
right.
up and live on all those different platforms.